Hi everyone, I'm not exactly sure I know how to pronounce Peloponnes, but that's how I'm going to say it. This is a Euro game from the makers of such iOS games like Cyclades, which were flops, and Timeline, which I thought was excellent. So let's take a look and see if this game lives up to the better parts of this developer's output. Let's give it a look. I had never heard of this game before trying it on iOS, but now I might actually seek it out as it reminds me a lot of Raw in a lot of ways. So you can play with up to 4 players. The way the game works is each player has money, and they have a starting city, which gives them a certain output. The white boxes are what you get immediately, and the brown boxes are the output that will be given to you later. The game relies on a bidding mechanic that shares something with Cyclades in terms of you can bid on an object openly, and players can outbid you, forcing you to move to a different bid, and you cannot rebid on what you bid initially. Also, an interesting part about this is you cannot up your bid. So let's say you bid 4 for a cheap tile and are kicked off of it. Suddenly, maybe there may be no options available at that price, meaning you cannot bid on anything, which can really limit your gameplay options. Much like Raw, there are disasters. These disasters are represented by tiles that come up in the stack, and these tiles, once there are 3 of them out, that disaster will occur. This will require players to take certain actions in order to save certain parts of their civilizations, which will earn them victory points. You earn more income by having more citizens, and at the end of each phase, which comes randomly, you will need to feed those citizens, meaning you need to stockpile food to accomplish this, or other goods that can replace the food needed. There are quite a few rules in this game, but it actually is not too heavy. It seems pretty clear, and once you figure out the basic mechanics, there definitely is a fun, enjoyable bidding game beneath the surface. Players will receive 2 scores at the end of the game. The first is their amount of citizens times 3. The second score is their victory points on buildings plus their gold divided by 3. The smaller of these 2 numbers is the player's score, so while there are 2 paths to victory, you need to balance both equally and try to get a good score in each. The game is pretty straightforward. There is no online play, however you can play against AI. This allows you to definitely learn the game, and you can also play against human players. There's also a solo mode that lets you go for a high score. I think AI play actually works pretty well here, as the game has a bit of randomness, and the AI seems strong enough, and then there's randomness there to freshen up the games and mitigate your winning every time. Being new to this game, I found it enjoyable. However, this is not necessarily a review of the game, it's a review of the app as a whole. As a game, the game is enjoyable. As an app, the app leaves a lot to be desired. The game has a very basic presentation, which is fairly clear but also lacking in some areas. First, obviously, it's very basic. It looks like a scan of the board game. This is acceptable, but not something we typically look for in a digital board game, at least not from my point of view. Another annoyance of the game is the control of information. If you ever forget what one of your tiles does, what one of the symbols means, you cannot actually go back and access that information. When the tile is in the middle, if you tap on it, it will let you know, but once it's in your tableau, it's hard to figure out what it does, which was problematic for me learning. Now I know more of what the symbols do and can remember most of them, but even then, there are quite a few symbols in the game, and it would have been nice to be able to access this information constantly. There are a few areas when players need to react, for example, to disasters, to save their buildings, etc. If you accidentally click away from a disaster before you save your buildings, there is no failsafe built in or anything like that, so you better be sure of your move before you do anything, as the game won't always alert you to the possibility of doing something, even when it is possible to be done, such as using goods, your luxury goods, instead of in the place of other goods to save buildings, etc. So I definitely recommend being careful in this area and making sure that you play the app slowly and deliberately. I've enjoyed the game underneath this app, and I think I'll continue to play it in this platform and would love to pick up a copy eventually. It seems like a nice addition to Raw with a few more rules and a few more things to do and a little more control. The app itself is a little bit middling. It leaves a lot to be desired and is definitely not one of the greatest iOS apps. However, if you like this game, I think you'll find a playable and enjoyable experience. It's just not a shining example of what's available on the platform.